You said Earth would never rise. So why are you on your knees now? Merrick Solvine's voice cut through the hushed tribunal chamber like a blade honed on defiance. His eyes locked with those of the Sarathi Dominion's envoy, a flicker of restrained fury beneath his calm exterior. The words did not echo. They landed solidly in the cold, marble-floored hall, each syllable a challenge that no Dominion delegate dared acknowledge. Merrick adjusted the seal of Earth's delegation pinned to his dark uniform. Around him, the walls of the Concord Tribunal Hall gleamed under bright spectrum lamps, white marble veined with silver, banners of every member world hanging limp in the still air. The sweet tang of the ceremonial incense lingered at the edges of his senses, a scent that once signified unity but now stank of the Dominion's smug decrees. Across the chamber, the Dominion's envoy, High Adjudicator Vorn Tresic, shifted his shoulders in the stiff ceremonial carapace of his rank. Earth's seat is probationary, he declared, voice dripping with cold finality. You have no standing here. Terra is geopolitically inert and evolutionarily finished. Merrick said nothing. His silence held the weight of oceans. He lowered his eyes to the data slab in front of him, fingers brushing the ridged edge of its casing. Through the transparent laser plasma displays flickering above the tribunal's central dais, he watched Dominion trade routes snake across charts of Earth's colonies, vibrant lines that mapped a stranglehold, not commerce. The scent of burned resin from the circuitry filled the air. Someone had overloaded a relay in their haste to push through the Dominion's decrees. The tribunal chamber was suffocating in its grandeur. Rows of polished seats occupied by delegates who shifted uncomfortably under Merrick's steady gaze. Their expressions were blank masks of courtesy, but their hands drummed restless beats on armrests, every one of them feeling the truth Merrick refused to speak. Behind him, Earth's colonial governors watched through secured laser plasma screens, their faces pale in the sterile glow of mission control rooms light years away. The transmission lines carried every tremor of the tribunal's final ruling. Earth's lunar rights, once guaranteed by charter, had been signed over to the Dominion in absentia, stripped from Terran hands with a single stroke of legalese. Governor Halloran's voice crackled through the comm patch at Merrick's wrist, low and tight with disbelief. They gave away the lunar basin, Merrick. They didn't even ask for a vote. Merrick could almost feel Halloran's white-knuckled grip on the console, the slight tremor in his breath that smelled of stale coffee and recycled air. Merrick pressed the channel mute without answering. His eyes returned to the Dominion envoy, measuring each blink, each twitch of that ridged jawline. The hall had become a theater of stillness, the Dominion statement hanging in the air like a gavel that had already fallen. Tresic shifted again, armored plates clicking as he raised his voice for all to hear. Let it be entered into the Concord's record. Earth's colonies are recognized as logistical outposts, not sovereign territories. No objections noted. He paused, relishing the final word. The matter is settled. A single breath was the only sound Merrick offered. His throat tightened, not from defeat, but from the effort of swallowing the words he knew would change nothing here. Outside the hall's massive windows, the station's orbital tethers glowed faintly red as they strained against the planet's spin. An engineering marvel Earth had once helped design, now a silent witness to their dismissal. Merrick rose slowly, the movement deliberate. His seat, polished darkwood with Earth's emblem carved deep into the armrests, creaked as he left it empty. He did not bow. He did not offer any parting glance. He stepped from the circle of Dominion control as though it had never held him. The Dominion scribes typed rapidly on their wrist-bound data modules, heads bent in a flurry of motion. They recorded Merrick's exit as if it were a formality, not a refusal. His boots clicked on the inlaid stone of the tribunal's floor, echoing once, and then swallowed by the hall's oppressive hush. Outside the chamber doors, the corridor smelled of antiseptic cleaners and stale air. Stale like the Dominion's decrees that had choked Earth's voice. Merrick's stride was measured, shoulders squared. The polished floor's reflection blurred around him, distorted by the bright overhead strips that made each step feel like a solitary parade of dignity. In the observation suites behind polarized glass, Concorde envoys watched in stiff silence. Merrick could see their reflection in the glass. Stoic faces, calculating eyes. None of them would challenge the Dominion's authority, not openly. Not yet. A low chime at his wrist. Another message from Halrin, text only. What now? Merrick didn't answer. Instead, he slowed, standing in the corridor's cold light. He let the Dominion's words roll in his mind. Inert, finished, irrelevant, words meant to bury. Words that had been spoken to silence Earth forever. He exhaled slowly, tasting the recycled air. Clean, empty, stripped of the ozone tang that once marked the lunar launch pads. His fingertips brushed the data slab at his hip, feeling the faint warmth of its charge cells. The tribunal had spoken, but Earth had never relied on the tribunal for its soul. Behind him, the Concorde's grand hall fell into a carefully orchestrated chaos. Dominion delegates congratulating one another in clipped phrases, trade envoys recalibrating their ledgers, and the laser plasma displays flickering through new sets of protocols. The Dominion had won today's session, but Merrick's silence was more than compliance. It was a ledger of everything that had been taken. He turned toward the Earth delegation's shuttle port, where the quiet hiss of atmosphere regulators signaled the craft's readiness. The airlock doors opened with a soft whine, the scent of lubricants and the faint tang of composite polymer drifting into the corridor, mundane smells that spoke of Terran ships ready to depart. Inside the shuttle, the interior lights glowed a muted amber, rows of control interfaces pulsing gently. Merrick took his seat near the forward console, the seat's cushioning firm beneath the stiff lines of his uniform. Outside the viewport, the Dominion's patrol ships held steady, their hulls gleaming like cold predators circling a wounded target. Earth's shuttle lifted from the docking ring with no fanfare. The magnetic stabilizers gave a low vibration through the floor, a tangible shiver that spoke of engines and flight without any poetic flourish. Through the viewport, the tribunal station receded, its banners and symbols reduced to a distant memory. Merrick closed his eyes briefly, listening to the even whir of the ship's life support vents, the faint hiss of pressure seals adjusting as they slipped beyond the tribunal's final shadow. The tribunal's verdict was sealed in the Concorde's record, a stain written in cold ink. Yet even as the shuttle carried him away, Merrick's mind was elsewhere. He saw Earth's silent laboratories, buried beneath lunar regolith, where engineers worked in the hush of recycled air. He felt the quiet weight of 1,000 data channels Earth had built and maintained. Channels the Dominion thought they owned. He opened his eyes to the dark void outside the shuttle's hull, the muted glint of distant stars. In that silence, Merrick knew Earth was not finished. The tribunal's judgment was a page in a ledger Earth had already learned how to rewrite. And as the shuttle banked away from the tribunal's cold glow, Merrick Solvine's measured breath became a promise. Quiet, certain, and entirely his own. The corridor's sterile lighting cast elongated shadows as Merrick Solvine stepped into the shuttle, the tribunal's echoing judgments still fresh in his mind. The door sealed behind him with a muted hiss, isolating him from the orchestrated theater of interstellar politics. He settled into the command chair, the fabric cool against his skin, and initiated a secure channel. "Initiate Protocol Lex 7, he commanded, his voice steady. A moment later, deep beneath Earth's lunar surface, in a facility shielded by layers of regolith and secrecy, a series of systems came online. The chamber, devoid of adornments, housed rows of servers humming with latent power. In the center stood Joran, a man whose demeanor mirrored the cold efficiency of the machines he tended. "Protocol Lex 7 activation confirmed," Jord reported, his fingers dancing across the console. "Subsystems are aligning with Concorde's arbitration networks." Varric, seated nearby, adjusted his glasses and scrutinized the data streams. Embedding our arbitration algorithms into Concorde's framework was a masterstroke, he mused. They've become so reliant on our systems that they won't notice the shift until it's irreversible. Allren, monitoring the operations from an adjacent terminal, nodded. The Dominion's overconfidence has blinded them. They've dismissed us as obsolete, never suspecting we've been the architects of their legal infrastructure. The trio worked in synchrony, their actions precise and deliberate. Each keystroke, each command further entwined Earth's control within the Concorde's arbitration systems. The facility's ambient temperature remained constant, the air tinged with the faint scent of lubricants and ozone from the machinery. As the hours passed, the embedded protocols began to influence Concorde's operations, subtly. Minor discrepancies appeared in data transmissions, arbitration decisions took longer to process, and trade agreements encountered unexpected delays. The Dominion's representatives, accustomed to swift resolutions, grew increasingly frustrated. In a secure communication, Merrick addressed the team. Maintain the anomalies within acceptable thresholds. We want to sow doubt, not panic. Understood, Joran replied. We're calibrating the disruptions to appear as system glitches. The Dominion will attribute them to technical issues, not sabotage. Varric leaned back, a rare smile playing on his lips. It's poetic, really. They built their empire on systems we designed. And now, those very systems will be their undoing. Hallen's gaze remained fixed on the monitor. This is just the beginning. Once the Dominion realizes the extent of our integration, it will be too late for them to extricate themselves. The facility's lighting dimmed slightly as the systems transitioned to a deeper level of integration. The servers emitted a low, steady hum, a testament to the immense computational processes underway. Outside, the lunar surface remained silent, the stars above oblivious to the machinations unfolding below. Back on Earth, in a nondescript building shielded from surveillance, a group of analysts monitored the unfolding situation. Their screens displayed real-time data from Concorde's networks, highlighting the growing anomalies. The room buzzed with quiet conversations, the air thick with anticipation. The Dominion's legal teams are scrambling, one analyst noted. They're initiating internal audits, but they won't find anything. Our footprints are well concealed. Another analyst chimed in. They're requesting technical support from Concorde's central systems. Should we intervene? Not yet, came the response. Let them exhaust their resources chasing shadows. The more they dig, the deeper they'll entangle themselves. As the days progressed, the Dominion's grip on the Concorde began to waver. Alliances strained under the weight of unresolved disputes, and member states questioned the efficacy of the existing arbitration systems. Whispers of reform circulated, but no one suspected Earth's involvement. In the lunar facility, Joran, Varric, and Halloran convened for a final assessment. The room, illuminated by the soft glow of monitors, bore witness to their unwavering commitment. Captain Allen, integration is complete, Joran announced. We've established control over key arbitration nodes. Any attempt to override our systems will trigger fail-safes. The Varric added, the Dominion's reliance on our infrastructure has rendered them vulnerable. They can't function without us. Halloran concluded, we've turned their arrogance into our advantage. Now, we wait for the right moment to reveal the truth. As they stood in the heart of the facility, surrounded by the silent machinery that had become the backbone of interstellar governance, the trio understood the magnitude of their achievement. Earth, once dismissed and marginalized, had woven itself into the very fabric of the Concorde's operations. And when the time came, the Dominion would realize that the foundation of their authority rested on a structure they neither understood nor controlled. Merrick Solvine's fingers rested lightly on the console, feeling the subtle warmth beneath the chilled air of Earth's orbital control hub. The shift in Concorde's data streams was like a breath caught in the throat of an empire. Subtle, unnoticed, but growing. On the screens in front of him, graphs shifted minutely, an artificial stutter no algorithm could attribute to chance. Merrick studied it in silence, the faint antiseptic tang of the recycled air grounding him in the moment. Trade relay logs are showing non-synchronous handshakes, Varric noted quietly, his breath faintly misting the transparent shield of the console as he leaned in closer. His voice was measured, calm, but each syllable held the weight of Earth's quiet sabotage. They'll see it as a routine mismatch, nothing more. No pattern for them to follow. Merrick didn't speak immediately. The low murmur of filtered air circulated overhead. the clean scent of synthetic polymers mixing with the bitter edge of the recycled atmosphere. His eyes tracked the data, tracing the delicate tremor he had spent decades cultivating. "Keep it there," he said finally, each word deliberate. "Too much, and they'll see the hand that holds the blade." In a corner of the chamber, Halloran worked his console with slow, deliberate gestures. The screens reflected pale light in his eyes, their faint flicker catching the steel in his gaze. "Minor trade disputes are already stacking up," he observed, the corners of his mouth pulling tight. "The Dominion's envoys are rattled. They're demanding arbitration intervention." "Let them demand," Merrick replied, his voice carrying the cold authority of one who understood the power of quiet leverage. "Each delay cuts deeper than a declaration ever could." The room was a cocoon of glass and polymer, filled with the clean scent of electrostatic filters and the cold presence of Earth's silent confidence. Beyond the shielded windows, Dominion enforcement ships hovered in orbit, sleek forms locked in place by invisible chains they hadn't yet realized were Earth's to tighten or loosen. Varick's eyes narrowed as he studied the scrolling error codes. "We're forcing recertifications on supply tenders. Dominion traders will be trapped in audits for weeks." Halloran's fingers danced over the interface, the faint friction of skin on glass, a quiet rhythm of disruption. "Let them be trapped," he said softly. "Each audit leaves another Dominion envoy screaming into a locked channel, and we don't even need to respond." Across the relay lines, the Dominion's fleet captains watched as their requests vanished into Concord's tangled arbitration matrix. Each comm burst brought fresh static, every frustrated demand for answers an echo of the arrogance they had once wielded so carelessly. Merrick imagined their command decks, polished metal floors under boots grown restless, the stale reek of sweat as certainty evaporated. A fresh report flickered onto Merrick's console, lines of coded data swimming across the screen. "Colonial outposts are stabilizing," he noted, his fingers pausing to rest against the console's cold edge. "Enforcement patrols are turning back. Concord's internal hesitations are giving us the breathing room we need." Halloran's lips curved in the faintest suggestion of a smile. "It's the first crack, small enough to ignore, until it isn't." The distant sounds of Earth's council chamber reached them through the secured line, faint but clear. Governors who had spent years stifled by Dominion tribute now spoke in clipped, urgent tones. The relief in their voices was a quiet song of hope, raw, unpolished, but real. Merrick let it wash over him for a moment, the taste of reclaimed agency. On Concord's tribunal floors, the impact was more immediate. Dominion delegates paced marble tiles worn smooth by centuries of ceremony. Their sharp voices rose in urgent arguments, hands slicing through the air as if to carve away the doubts they refused to name. Merrick could almost feel the static of tension building there, like a storm front forming behind the blank faces of the tribunal guards. Duran's image flickered onto a secondary screen, his dark eyes reflecting the data that flowed unceasingly around him. "We've seeded a false protocol call in the Dominion's dispute channel," he reported. "It's subtle. They'll spend cycles chasing it down, never realizing it's a specter." "Good," Merrick said, the word quiet but final. He shifted his gaze to the rotating globe of Earth displayed on the wall behind him, its continent shrouded in the soft glow of dawn, as if to remind him of the stakes each flick of data carried. In the tribunal's grand hall, the Dominion's high adjudicator Vorn Tressick raised his voice. "Our trade lanes are in disarray," he thundered, the air around him charged with the sweat-sharp tang of his own frustration. "Concord's arbitration matrix must be corrected at once." A Concord arbiter replied in measured tones, his calm a shield against the Dominion's escalating desperation. "We are conducting internal audits," he said. "The delays are unfortunate, but they are systemic. There is no evidence of external interference." The envoy's hand cracked down on the polished stone table, the sound a flat challenge to every eye in the chamber. Merrick watched through the secured feed, the tribunal's white walls stark beneath the cold glow of overhead lights. In that room of diplomatic choreography, the Dominion's fury stood naked, loud but powerless. Back in Earth's control hub, Halrin's fingers stilled. "They're turning on each other," he said, voice calm. "They think it's Concord's failing, not ours." "Let them believe it," Merrick said softly, the words a promise. "Every time they blame Concord, they tighten the snare around themselves." Eric looked up from his screen, his eyes sharp. "The balance is shifting. They know something's wrong, but they can't find the source." "Good," Merrick answered. "That's the point. We are the silence between their questions, the hand they can't see." The room smelled of machine oil and the faint tang of soldered circuits, the subtle heat of electronics against the skin. Merrick let that weight settle around him, a tangible reminder of the quiet strength Earth had woven into every corner of the Concord's foundation. Outside the reinforced viewports, the Dominion's warships remained poised, motionless shapes glinting in the sterile light of the nearest star. They had come as watchers, certain of their dominance. Now they drifted, the pride of their empire shackled by threads of data Earth alone could see. Merrick drew a slow breath, feeling the clean bite of chilled air in his lungs. His final command in that quiet room was simple. "Hold the line," he said. "Let the cracks spread." And with those words, Earth's silent triumph began to echo through every channel, every corridor of power that had once written them off as nothing more than a footnote. The quiet fractures grew, a subtle hymn of disruption that only those who had built it could hear. And it was enough. The chamber doors hissed open with a low mechanical grind, a sound that pulled every gaze in the Concord assembly to the figure who entered. Command Director Ralvin Stain stepped forward, each stride measured, boots clicking softly on the polished black floor. His presence held no grandeur, no flourish of authority, just the quiet certainty of a man carrying the final word. He carried a single data rod, plain in form, brushed gray casing catching the harsh white light that pooled from the chamber's ceiling fixtures. No banners, no insignias. It was a device built for truth, not for spectacle. Stain's grip on it was steady, fingers curling around the smooth composite shell as he approached the center dais. The assembly's air was tight with the scent of polished stone and the recycled crispness of the chamber's climate control, a sterile environment that belied the heat building behind Dominion delegates' impassive faces. The murmur of alien voices fell silent as Stain reached the center circle, eyes hard under the cold glow of the overhead beams. He set the data rod on the central input console with a deliberate motion, the click of contact as clear as a dropped stone in a pool of water. "This data," he said, voice carrying across the silent chamber, "is yours. Recorded by your own arbitration nodes, untouched by Earth's hand, untouched by any outside influence." His tone was calm, yet the weight of each word pressed into the air. No one spoke. The Dominion's envoy, High Judgecator Vorn Tressick, flinched slightly, his fingers tightening on the edge of his station's cold surface. A thin line of sweat glistened along the edge of his brow, catching the white glow that seemed to bleach every face around him. Stain's eyes moved across the assembly, meeting each delegate in turn. "The logs document Dominion strikes on Terran supply lines," he continued, each phrase measured as he unfolded the evidence. "Unauthorized seizures of neutral convoys, falsified votes within this assembly's own arbitration records, and the systematic manipulation of Concord's financial streams for personal gain." A thin rustle of movement broke the stillness. Concord's chief record keeper leaned forward to verify the data feed. The low static of verification pulses filled the silence, a quiet counterpoint to the tension coiling tighter with every breath. Stain waited, his posture unmoving, a cold calm in the face of shifting glances and darting eyes. The air felt sharp against the back of his throat, carrying the faint antiseptic bite of the chamber's automated scrubbers. He let the stillness settle before he spoke again. "This is not a charge," he said. "It is a record. It was your system that captured these actions. It was your system that turned a blind eye." His voice was steady, low enough that each word forced those listening to lean forward, to feel the edge of each revelation. Across the chamber, the Dominion delegates stiffened. One of them, a short, broad-shouldered envoy with the lines of old battles etched into his brow, shifted restlessly, boots scraping against the marble floor. "This is an Earth accusation," he snapped, voice cracking under the strain of forced calm. "We will not dignify an enemy's data trickery." Stain's gaze fixed on him, cold and unblinking. "I said nothing about Earth's findings. This is your data," he replied, each syllable weighted like a ledger's final entry. "We do not accuse. We only reveal." The screens built into the chamber's perimeter lit up as the data rod interfaced with the assembly's own network. Lines of code and recorded entries appeared in crisp detail, every line of Dominion duplicity cataloged and cross-verified by the assembly's own systems. The data was color-coded for clarity. No interpretation, no narrative, only the cold lines of truth that no Dominion envoy could bend to their will. Tressik's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes flicked across the data that now spread across the assembly's displays, each entry a spike of cold iron that locked every Dominion claim into place. The harsh glare of the chamber lights threw deep lines across his face, skin glistening faintly with the thin layer of sweat he could not wipe away. Stain's hand moved to rest beside the data rod, fingers loose but resolute. "Your own systems speak for us," he said. His voice a final stone dropped into the quiet that followed. "You called us inert. You said Earth was finished. Yet here, in your records, is the testament of your own crimes." The room shifted, tension pulsing like a heartbeat under skin. Alien delegates shifted in their seats, the faint creak of composite chairs and the scent of heated air as system relays strained to handle the flood of data. No one spoke. No one moved to challenge him. Behind Stain, Concord's chief archivist straightened, his face an unreadable mask as he scanned the final data validation. He turned slowly to the assembly's chair, voice soft but unyielding. "The records are authentic. They have not been tampered with." A murmur of voices rose, hesitant, half-formed protests that died before they reached the assembly's walls. Tressik's hand twitched at his side, fingers curling against the polished edge of the Dominion's crest embossed in the stone. He inhaled through flared nostrils, the taste of the recycled air bitter, as he searched for an argument that no longer existed. Stain took a step back from the console, his stance open, unchallenged. The data rod remained where he had placed it, no embellishment, no gesture of triumph. It was the quiet weight of 30 years of Dominion betrayal, laid bare in the cold light of the assembly's scrutiny. "You have always believed Earth had no teeth," Stain said, the words as calm as the steady rhythm of his breath. "Yet you built your empire's walls on arbitration systems we forged. Every ledger, every vote, every secret move. It was captured by the very foundation you dismissed as irrelevant." His final words landed like iron on stone. "This is not our accusation. This is your confession." He turned then, the echo of his boots a measured cadence across the floor. The chamber's air seemed thicker, each breath drawn by those watching tight with the weight of exposed shame. The Dominion delegates said nothing, the finality of the data overwhelming the bluster that had once defined them. As Stain reached the chamber's threshold, he paused. His head turned slightly, the white light etching the hard line of his jaw. "Let the record show," he said, his voice low enough to be carried only by the assembly's silent ears. That Earth did not raise its voice. It only held up the mirror, and then he was gone, the doors sliding closed behind him with a quiet finality that echoed louder than any proclamation. In the silent assembly hall, the data scrolled on, a record no Dominion voice could silence, a testament to a power they had never understood until it was too late. The chamber doors closed behind Ralvin Stain with a quiet seal, leaving the Concord assembly to their silence and the flickering data that could no longer be ignored. Outside the tribunal, Earth's command tower loomed against the cold glare of orbiting stars, a silent witness to the Dominion's desperate final act. Dominion warships formed a line at the edge of Earth's orbital boundary, hulls lit by starlight and the faint glimmer of relay stations flickering with soft warnings. Their formation was tight, bristling with readiness, yet they remained locked in place, their sleek shapes more threat than action. Inside Earth's command center, Mirek Solvine watched the data feeds crawl across the wall-mounted screens, each flicker a testament to the tension in every corridor of power. The filtered air smelled faintly of lubricants and the sterile tang of recycled atmosphere. He stood at the head of the operations table, eyes hard, shoulders squared beneath the smooth black fabric of his uniform. "The Dominion fleets have sealed off the trade lanes," Varric reported, voice low, a thin edge of tension in each syllable. "They're scanning every freighter within the outer ring, holding them at anchor until we respond." Merrick's gaze shifted to Halloran, who sat at a secondary console, fingers resting lightly on the input pad. "Have they engaged any Terran ships directly?" Merrick asked, his tone even. Halloran shook his head, jaw tightening. "No. They're making it clear. This is pressure, not combat. They want to provoke us into a military response. They think we'll give them the battle they're begging for." "Ellie won't get it," Merrick said. His voice carried no heat, only the cool certainty of a decision already made. A Dominion broadcast flared to life on the secure channel, the harsh accent of Commander Vorn Tresic crackling through the static. "Earth," he declared, each word a cold strike across the quiet of the room. "You will lift your blockades and yield to Dominion authority, or we will consider your silence an act of war." The words fell like shards of ice into the room, but Merrick only exhaled, the taste of stale air against his tongue. "Record that transmission," he ordered. "Archive it alongside the tribunal data. Every word they speak becomes another link in the chain they've forged around their own throat." Varric's eyes flicked across the room's perimeter displays. "The colonies are holding steady. We've initiated legal arbitration freezes in response to their blockade. No cargo is moving anywhere." Outside, the Dominion ships hung in orbit, locked by the same systems Earth had crafted decades before. Their gunports tracked the empty void between them and Earth's defenses, but nothing stirred in return. The quiet was heavier than any weapons fire. Halloran's fingers moved in small, controlled motions across his console. "The trade networks are already slowing to a crawl. Concord's arbitration engines are bogged down by our hold commands. Dominion captains are transmitting demands to the Assembly, but it's all just noise." Merrick's lips pressed into a line, his voice steady. "Let them shout. Let them fill the air with threats. Each demand they make into Conquer's channels proves how deeply they've come to rely on a system they never understood." A low murmur of static came through the secondary feed. Earth's colonial outposts reporting in. Merrick leaned forward, listening as the colonial governor's clipped tones carried across the line. "Enforcement ships have withdrawn from immediate orbit," the governor said. "Dominion commanders are focusing on outer patrols, but there's confusion in their ranks. We're safe for the moment." "Keep all colonies in lockdown mode," Merrick replied. "No trade, no movement. We'll let the Dominion see the strength of our silence." In orbit, the Dominion's ships shifted in slow arcs, patrol patterns coiling tighter as they waited for Earth to break the standstill. The station's observation decks were crowded with their watchers, alien officers whose polished boots scraped faintly on the deck plating as they peered through reinforced viewports. Each breath they took filled with the dry chill of controlled air, each exhale tainted by the stale sweat of unease. Halloran's console pinged softly, a note of quiet finality. "They're repeating their demands," he said, voice almost detached, "trying to draw us into the open. Tresic has issued 3 separate ultimatums in the last hour." Merrick's jaw flexed once, then stilled. "They think Earth fears confrontation. What they don't see is that confrontation isn't the ground we choose to stand on." Varric's eyes glinted in the cold light, the faint lines of fatigue around them a testament to the long hours at his station. "Their ships are powered, their weapons locked, but they can't pull the trigger without legitimacy. And that legitimacy is already slipping through their fingers." A tense stillness settled over the room, punctuated only by the quiet beeps of incoming status updates. The Dominion's warships remained motionless against the backdrop of distant stars, their threat an empty promise in the cold darkness. Halloran leaned back in his chair, fingers brushing across the ridged edge of his console. "They've underestimated what silence can do," he said, voice low, almost as if speaking to himself. "They've never known an enemy who could stand so still that the weight of their own aggression turns back on them." Merrick allowed himself a single nod. "That's how you bury an empire," he said. "Not with force, but with the refusal to give them the battle they think they want." Beyond the command tower's reinforced walls, the thin lines of Earth's relay networks glowed softly in the cold light, each transmission a silent counterpoint to the Dominion's growling declarations. Earth's orbit remained clear, its planetary defenses quiet. Watching, waiting, a monument to restraint and control. The Dominion's final threat came through the relay, Tressick's voice tight and ragged. "Earth, you leave us no choice," he said, the words cracking under the weight of forced authority. "This is your final chance to comply." Merrick's reply was a single statement, spoken calmly, each word deliberate. "You have already lost your claim. This is no longer a matter for ships or soldiers. Your threats are empty, and your empire is already breaking under the weight of its own lies." The transmission cut, the sudden quiet of the channel a final punctuation mark. Merrick's eyes swept the room, taking in the quiet pride in the men who stood with him. The command tower smelled of clean circuits and the sharp tang of steel consoles, the air crisp and alive with unspoken resolve. Outside, the Dominion's warships drifted in their cold vigil, each one caught in the tightening noose of Earth's legal blockade. They would not fire. They could not move without Concord's arbitration, an arbitration Earth had already sealed shut. And in the silent hold of Earth's command tower, Merrick Solvine knew this was the end of the Dominion's last threat. Their power lay in the show of force, but Earth's strength was in the refusal to be moved. An immovable will that no weapon could shatter. The command tower's atmosphere was chilled, each breath of air filtered through hidden ducts, tasting faintly of mineral water and disinfectant. Merrick Solvine stood at the central console, the glow of status panels casting pale shadows across the unwavering set of his jaw. The Dominion's warships remained frozen in orbit, their weapons dormant, held in place by the quiet authority of Earth's refusal to answer their calls. Halloran, seated at his station to Merrick's right, studied the final sequence of commands on his screen, each line of code a single step towards an irrevocable shift. "All arbitration nodes confirm alignment," he said, his voice quiet, almost reverent. "The last failsafe is green." Merrick shifted his weight, the soft creak of the console seat's edge grounding him in that moment of silent decision. "Bring protocol blind jury online," he ordered, the word steady as they left his lips. Barak, overseeing the secondary interface, input the final activation code. The console responded with a muted confirmation chime. Earth's data networks, woven through the Concord's arbitration channels like a hidden current, surged to life. Lights across the control center flickered as relay after relay locked into Earth's silent command. In the Concord assembly, delegates leaned forward as status monitors shifted from steady blues to flickering white airs. Data streams stuttered, then froze altogether, the air in that distant hall thickening with the scent of sweat and heated electronics. No alarms sounded, no klaxons cut the silence, only the quiet dread of systems grown still. Dominion ships, once cold shapes of menace, flickered on Merrick's displays as authorization codes failed one by one. Fuel allocations vanished, crew rations flagged incomplete. Orders that had driven them forward now dissolved, leaving them adrift, without a single line of binding authority. Halloran's hand trembled slightly on the console's smooth surface, his eyes wide as he watched the data collapse in real time. "They're locked out," he said, each word a slow exhale of disbelief. "Concord's ledgers are static. No credits. No contracts." Merrick's gaze remained fixed on the central feed, the data once alive with Dominion's commerce now a dead sea of gray. "Earth didn't forge weapons," he said, his tone even, a finality in each syllable. We forged the systems they thought they owned. And now we hold the keys to every gate they once believed theirs. Barrick's voice was tight with awe. The arbitration matrix is sealed. Every cargo manifest, every loan, every trade route, frozen by our hand. They'll find nothing to barter, nothing to threaten. Merrick nodded, his eyes narrowing slightly. Initiate the final ledger broadcast, he said, the command falling into the air like the last note of a song. Hallen keyed in the sequence, his finger steady despite the tremor in his breath. Across the relay networks, Earth's data beacon pulsed once, a solid line of pure code that cut through the dead channels like a single, unwavering signal. The relay towers that ringed the assembly station glowed faintly, each transmission carrying the same message. On every Dominion ship, on every Concorde station, screens flickered to life. Earth's emblem appeared, stark against the black. And then the ledgers spilled across the displays. Each entry was simple, clear, Dominion's wealth, traced back through falsified manifests, forged claims, and hollow assets. The numbers fell like cold rain, stripping away the facade of power the Dominion had worn for generations. Merrick watched as the feed stabilized, each flicker of data a truth that could not be refuted. The scent of warm circuitry filled the air in the control center, blending with the faint mineral tang of recycled water as Earth's quiet control settled like a mantle across every system that had once ignored them. Varric let out a slow breath, his shoulders slumping with a mixture of relief and finality. Dominion's financial engines are ashes, he said, his voice almost lost in the hush. Without those ledgers, their fleets can't fuel, their governors can't pay their own tribute. Everything they built was a story, and we just ended it. Merrick's reply was a simple nod, no triumph in his eyes, only the weight of responsibility that came with that final, quiet blow. We gave them the tools to build an empire, he said. We also wrote the rules that could bring it to an end. On Concorde's central relay tower, the indicator lights flickered once, then fell to darkness. The assembly's chambers, once bright with data streams and endless chatter, were left in quiet disarray. Delegates rose from their seats, the shuffle of boots on stone floors echoing in the stillness as they stared at the dead screens. The heavy scent of sweat filled the air, the warm tang of bodies that had nowhere to turn. Dominion's allies, some of them once quick to brand Earth as irrelevant, now found themselves without a foundation. They shifted in place, heads bowed, the weight of sudden uncertainty bending them as they recalculated every promise and threat. Halrin's voice cut through the silence. The Assembly's comm lines have gone silent, he said. No new arbitration logs, no financial transactions, nothing but the final broadcast. Merrick's fingers tapped once on the console's edge, feeling the slight bite of the composite material against his skin. Let it be enough, he said softly. Let them see what Earth's silence has built. The final image of the data beacon glowed on the center display. No motion, no flicker, just an unbroken line of pure, immutable code. Merrick let his eyes rest on it for a long moment, the cool blue of the display reflecting in his gaze. Halrin leaned back, exhaustion etching fine lines into his face. This was never about conquest, he said, his voice hoarse with the weight of the hours spent in that room. We never wanted to wear their chains. We only wanted to show them how easily they could break. Varric turned his head, the hard light of the control center washing the shadows from his features. And now they understand, he said, without a single shot fired. Outside the tower's reinforced windows, the stars seemed to burn brighter against the cold backdrop of space. The Dominion's ships, once proud emblems of fear, drifted quietly, their threat reduced to nothing more than the cold glow of hull lights. Without fuel or orders. Merrick let his breath out in a slow, even sigh. The air was crisp, clean, the taste of finality on his tongue. They'll remember this day, he said, each word carrying the weight of Earth's quiet triumph. Not for what we destroyed, but for what we revealed. And in that silence, Earth's will stood unchallenged. The final lock had clicked into place, and nothing in that cold darkness could break it. The chamber was silent, its walls lined with the worn insignias of countless interstellar treaties. The air carried the sterile scent of recycled atmosphere, tinged with the faint aroma of aged paper and polished stone. The only sound was the soft echo of footsteps as Ralph entered alone. His boots met the polished floor with deliberate cadence, each step resonating with the weight of history. Dominion envoys stood at the far end, their once imposing figures now diminished, cloaked in the remnants of authority. Their eyes, once sharp with command, now flickered with uncertainty. The room's ambient lighting cast elongated shadows, emphasizing the void left by their waning power. Stain approached the central dais, his posture erect, eyes unyielding. He carried no documents, no devices, only the gravity of Earth's silent ascendancy. He paused, allowing the weight of the moment to settle. "You declared Earth would never rise," Stain began, his voice steady, devoid of malice. "That our silence signified submission, our restraint, weak." The Dominion envoy shifted, the rustle of fabric breaking the stillness. Yet no words came. Their silence was not of defiance, but of resignation. Stain continued, "We chose a different path, not of conquest, but of conviction. While you wielded force, we mastered the frameworks you overlooked." He gestured subtly to the chamber itself, its architecture a blend of cultures now unified under a new paradigm. "This hall, once a theater of your dominance, now bears witness to your capitulation." The Dominion delegates remained motionless, their silence an acknowledgement of the irreversible shift. Stain stepped back, allowing the moment to imprint itself upon the annals of history. Without further word, he turned and exited, leaving behind a legacy not of war, but of unwavering resolve. The chamber remained, its silence now echoing with the truth that Earth had risen not through force, but through the quiet, unassailable strength of its convictions. Stain's last words in the tribunal chamber carried through the station like a final command no Dominion delegate dared contest. When he stepped away, the entire Concord Assembly stood in a hush that no threat could break. Outside those walls, Earth's message spread wordlessly, carried by the data echoes of every relay Earth had ever touched. In orbit, Earth's ships held their station. They didn't press forward or broadcast a challenge. Their quiet stillness was the final expression of control, a presence so solid that no Dominion fleet dared test it. The air in Earth's command tower was cold and clean, the low vibration of shielded systems settling as the last data streams shifted into silent finality. Merrick Solvine stood by the main console, watching the new data pathways ripple out, lines of control Earth had never declared, only built. Halloran entered, eyes sharp behind the faint lines of exhaustion. "The Concord Council offered Earth a permanent seat in the Assembly," he reported. "A ceremonial title, to honor what we accomplished." Merrick turned to face him, his voice even and quiet. "We don't need a throne to hold their trust. Directive oversight will be enough." Halloran inclined his head, acknowledging the weight of that decision. "The Council has ratified it. We won't vote, but we will watch every decision, every word entered into their charter." Merrick glanced at the live feed from the Council chamber. The Dominion's delegates stood in uneasy clusters, the certainty in their eyes broken. Former allies huddled together in private exchanges, their expressions drawn tight as they recognized the new order that had risen, without a single shot fired. Garub's voice crackled through the secured channel. "Dominion territories are fracturing. Their governors are signing local pacts, stabilizing trade on their own terms. Without arbitration to protect their claims, there's no imperial center left to hold them together." Merrick nodded, his gaze distant for a moment. "The weight of that collapse will be felt in every colony, every outpost that once feared Dominion authority." Allen stepped closer, his tone low. "Do you think they'll ever recover? Or will they become just another chapter in a history Earth is already rewriting?" Merrick let the question hang in the air. Outside the viewport, the faint glint of relay towers marked the edge of Earth's orbit. cold structures of alloy and data, silent witnesses to what had been done. "They will survive," he said at last, the words carrying a weight of quiet certainty. "But they will never forget that Earth never raised a fleet. We never threatened them. We simply showed them what they had built on lies." Across the system, the final broadcast continued, an unbroken line of data flowing through every channel, Earth's ledger of Dominion deceit laid bare for all to see. In the Concorde's archives, the new charter was being etched into memory. Earth's directive oversight, the silent guardian no empire could ever silence. On the ground in Earth's colonial settlements, relief washed through crowded control rooms. Colonial governors watched the data flow stabilize, the Dominion's threats evaporating into nothing more than echoes. The air in those rooms tasted of salt and scrubbed steel, the scent of hard-won safety lingering in the corners where men once measured their every breath against distant fear. Halrin studied Mirek's profile in the quiet light. "There's a final line in the Council's new record," he said. "It's already circulating in the outposts. They're calling it Earth's lesson. They never fired. They just stood up and everything else fell." Mirek's lips twitched faintly. A fitting epitaph for what they tried to bury in silence. A transmission pinged through the main console. A private channel from one of the Dominion's last governors, stripped of rank and desperate for acknowledgement. "He's offering tribute," Varric said, reading the decrypted line. "No threats, no claims, just a plea to be recognized, to be allowed to remain in the Council's orbit." Mirik didn't answer at once. He reached forward, fingertips brushing the console's smooth edge, feeling the faint warmth of the data lines beneath. "We accept no tribute," he said. "They'll have to find their own way forward. Earth's oversight won't grant them absolution, only clarity." Outside, Earth's relay towers pulsed softly, their signals steady and clean. In those silent transmissions was the shape of Earth's victory. No empire claimed, no colonies absorbed, just the quiet hand of a people who had turned Dominion arrogance into their own undoing. Halrin straightened, the finality in Mirek's words echoing through the quiet room. "And the Assembly? They're watching us now, seeing not the threat of war, but the fact that we are here to stay." Mirek's eyes met his, calm and unwavering. "That's all we ever needed. Let them govern their star lanes. Let them trade and bicker as they always have. Earth will stand behind every law they write, every promise they dare make. And if they forget? If they ever let themselves believe again that Earth is silent because we are weak, we will remind them that silence was always our strongest word." The final Council broadcast flickered on the main feed, the Dominion's crest now joined by Earth's quiet symbol. No banner of conquest, only a sign that could never be erased. Mirik turned from the screen, letting the distant hiss of circulating air fill the space, where words had once fallen like weapons. He walked to the observation deck, Halrin and Varric at his side. Through the reinforced panels, Earth's horizon stretched in muted blues and greens, the quiet curve of oceans untouched by any Dominion hand. Beyond it, the corridors of trade reformed under new rules. Rules that would never again belong to those who once thought Earth could be dismissed. Varric spoke in a low tone, the final admission of a man who had seen the end of an empire. "They thought Earth would never rise," he said. Merrick's gaze never wavered from the silent horizon. "They thought wrong," he said. "And that truth will stand long after any empire's last breath." In the silence that followed, Earth's directive oversight took its first breath as the final witness to what had been written in the dark of Dominion ambition. And as the lights of distant worlds flickered in the cold night, Earth's quiet watch became the promise that no empire would ever again forget the lesson of a species that never fired a single shot. Because they never needed to. This was Earth's final stand. No more debates, no more Dominion threats, no more councils arguing over the weight of Earth's presence. In every ledger, every council record, every memory that survived this day, Earth's silent oversight was there. Unbreakable, undeniable, and everlasting. And so it ended, not with a conquest, not with a war, but with a single, unshakable fact. Earth never rose through force. They stood, and everything else fell.